The observation deck of the Zathari warship Bloodclaw hummed with tension as Commander Vexlar studied the security feed. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen in disbelief. Dr. Ilara Wynn, the human cultural liaison assigned to their vessel 3 months prior, lay curled on the floor of the juvenile training chamber. That alone would have been cause for alarm. But surrounding her, pressed against her small frame in a protective circle, were 6 Zathari cubs, the offspring of the ship's highest-ranking warriors. How long has she been in there? Vexlar's mandibles clicked nervously. 2 hours, Commander, replied his second. The cubs' parents are requesting immediate extraction. Vexlar felt his blood chill. The Zathari were apex predators, their species having conquered 12 star systems through sheer ferocity. Their young were trained from hatching to hunt to kill to dominate. Even as cubs, they possessed razor-sharp claws, bone-crushing jaws, and instincts honed by millions of years of evolution. And this human, this fragile, soft-skinned creature, had somehow ended up unconscious in their midst. "Prepare the tranquilizer drones," he ordered. "We extract her now before—" "Commander, wait." His tactical officer zoomed in on the feed. "Look at Kor." The largest cub, Kor, offspring of war leader Thaxaron himself, had positioned himself directly over the human's torso. His scaled body rose and fell with her breathing. His tail, tipped with a venomous barb that could paralyze a grown Tyrellian, was wrapped carefully around her wrist. The other cubs formed a defensive perimeter, their heads raised, watching the chamber entrance with alert, protective gazes. "They're guarding her," Vexlar breathed. It was impossible. Zathari cubs didn't guard. They hunted. They tested themselves against prey. The human should have been torn apart the moment she showed vulnerability. "How did this happen?" he demanded. The second officer pulled up earlier footage. She was assigned to the Cultural Integration Program. The High Command thought exposing the cubs to other species would make them more effective in coalition operations. The screen showed Dr. Ilara entering the chamber 6 hours earlier, carrying a worn datapad and a cloth bag. The cubs had immediately surrounded her, hissing, their hackles raised. But instead of showing fear, the human had simply sat down cross-legged and pulled out a physical book, an actual paper book, a rarity in the 24th century. "Hello, little ones," she'd said in perfect Zathari, though her accent was charmingly off. "Would you like to hear a story?" Kor had approached first, suspicious, his claws extended. Dr. Ilara had held out her hand, palm up, showing no weapons. The cub sniffed, then made a gesture that Vexlar recognized, the challenge posture. What the human did next shocked him. She didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. Instead, she gently tapped Kor's snout with 2 fingers, the Zathari gesture of affectionate correction that only parents used with their young. "Sit," she'd said firmly. Story time requires good manners, and incredibly, impossibly, Kor had sat. Over the next hours, the footage showed Dr. Ilara reading to the cubs. She spoke in Zathari, but also in Standard, sometimes in what the translator identified as ancient human languages: English, Urdu, Mandarin. The cubs, initially restless, had gradually settled around her. She read them tales of human heroes and monsters, of Earth's predators and prey, of the bonds between different species. "Humans have a word," she'd told them, her voice soft on the recording. "Pack. It means family that hunts together, protects together. You are pack, little ones, and pack takes care of each other." Kor had crept closer, resting his massive head on her knee. She'd stroked the scales between his eyes, a vulnerable spot no Zathari would normally allow anyone to touch. He'd made a sound that Vexlar had never heard from a cub, a deep, rumbling purr. The other cubs had followed, crowding around her, listening. She'd read until her voice grew hoarse, until the datapad's charge depleted, and she'd switched to the physical book. And somewhere in the telling of a tale about a human child and a lion, her eyes had closed. The book had slipped from her fingers. She'd fallen asleep, surrounded by predators. "We must extract her now," War Leader Thaxaron growled, appearing at Vexlar's side. "My son should not be—" "Wait," Vexlar interrupted, something he'd never dared do before. "Watch." On the screen, one of the smaller cubs had started to move toward the chamber entrance. Kor's eyes had snapped open. He'd repositioned himself over Dr. Ilara, spreading his wings, still small but growing, in a protective canopy. The other cub had immediately retreated, understanding the signal. "She is mine to protect." By the ancient hunters. Thaxaron whispered. He's bonded with her. It was the rarest of Zathari behaviors, seen only between mates or between parent and offspring. For a cub to bond with prey, no, with another species entirely, it was unprecedented. The human has done in hours what our trainers couldn't do in months, Vexlar observed. She's taught them loyalty beyond their own kind. Thaxaron's expression was unreadable. This could change everything. If our warriors could bond with other species as allies rather than merely tolerating them, it would make us unstoppable, Vexlar finished. They watched as Dr. Ilara stirred, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment she looked confused, then aware of the warm, scaled body surrounding her. A normal person would have panicked. Dr. Ilara smiled. "Good morning, Pack," she murmured, reaching up to scratch Kor under his chin. The cub, who would one day grow to be a warrior capable of tearing through starship hulls, made that purring sound again and nuzzled her hand. "Shall we continue reading?" she asked, retrieving her book. 6 young predators, descendants of conquerors, settled around her like devoted students. And Dr. Ilara Wynn, seemingly unaware that she'd accomplished the impossible, began to read again. Vexlar turned to Thaxaron. "Perhaps we've underestimated humans." The war leader watched his son curl protectively around the small human, his ancient warrior's heart moved by something he couldn't name. "Perhaps humans have something we've lost in all our centuries of conquest. They don't see predator and prey. They see potential for Pack." On the screen, Dr. Ilara's voice carried through the chamber, reading tales of courage and friendship, while 6 apex predators listened with rapt attention, learning that strength wasn't just about claws and fangs, it was about who you chose to protect.